Hello, everybody. And hope you all are doing well. Just as a reminder before we get started, this channel is for educational purposes only, and, or maybe in legal terms, entertainment purposes only. And got a wild one for you. Sorry for the delay. We did, I reached out to Dan last minute, like 5 minutes before we were going to go live, and just saw if he was up and down to kind of go over some of this NDE. And he'll be joining us for some of it. I'm not sure if he's going to be around for the whole thing, but he's also run across something really interesting. And he's going to let him talk about all that. And we'll start with that in the beginning. So want to, of course, before bring Dan in, I just want to give you a rundown of this near-death experience of, I'm going to say Helmut, probably butchering that, but a really, really interesting case. It's a childhood near-death experience. He's got a really wild life script. Basically, he was on a, I guess, a friend of the family's farm doing some work in, I believe, a barn or like a chicken coop or something like that. He was high up and moving hay, ended up falling. I think it was like 32 feet or 10 meters. And before he even hit the ground, he had left his body. Ends up having to, he has, friends or family, whoever's around him, trying to help him. And back in when it happened, the hospital was 2.5 hours away, and he had serious, serious injuries. Ends up getting to the hospital, running into like a very spiritually well-versed woman there. And crazy enough, this is what makes his case even more unique. He's given the Tibetan Book of the Dead before, I guess, like a surgical procedure. He's also, he has the NDE, but he's also in a coma for 7 days. So we kind of have that crossover, which is interesting. I mean, this case really is really, really unique. You don't, I don't think I've ever really run across a case of a child who was given a different spiritual outlook or spiritual material on something versus what they grew up on just prior to their NDE. I mean, it's really, really interesting how this one goes, especially because it's from a child's perspective too. And so, yeah, I really think you're going to enjoy this one. So without further ado, I want Dan to be able to hang with us as much as he's up to. So welcome, Dan. Good to have you, brother.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Mark, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you good, man.
Great. Good. Sounds like a fascinating one.
It's loaded.
I just finished watching the last couple you posted on your channel. Very interesting.
Thank you. So I know when you call, I don't know if you could just maybe get a little closer to the mic. I know when we spoke, you had mentioned something interesting that you ran a search on, and I'd love for you to share it.
Yeah, well, is that better?
Yeah, that's much better. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So you have brought it up time and time again. It always comes up in near-death experiences, this tremendous love wave that we get that quote all the time. It's all about love, Mm-hmm. And it just dawned on me: is there actually any information? Because why would that be used constantly as some kind of thing, especially with our premise that a lot of this stuff is a deception, mm-hmm. and its purpose is to lure you into complying or agreeing to another reincarnation cycle, or to just if you just stick around the Earth astral, which I think,
or just whatever other matrix realms they run, right?
right. I'm
I
sure
mean,
that
who
this is
knows?
the only Loosh farm. There
Yeah,
has to be other
exactly.
ones.
There's no way.
Right.
There's got to be many.
Right. So, and anybody out there, I was going to do a short video on this on my channel, and I'll probably do it tomorrow. Maybe I've just been working a lot and I'm kind of tired lately. But if you go to Google, Brave, search, DuckDuckGo, you can go to any search engine and just type in "love can blind you." And if you do that, like Mark, if you actually go to, I don't know if you can put it on your screen, but if you Google "love can blind you," you'll get a summary thing at the very top, which tells you what it means to be blinded by love, and it basically says that the emotion can make you go beyond anything logical or rational. You lose sense of objectivity. Essentially, this is the perfect tool. There's actually an article very close to the top, which is titled "There's Actual Scientific Proof that love can indeed make you, mentally blind."
You know what? You could share your screen if you'd like. If you'd like, I mean, or you could just read it. I mean, it's up to
Let
you,
me see.
whatever you prefer. You just
Let me
do the
see.
share and share and then screen. Excuse me, sorry for coughing in your face.
Oh yeah, okay. Share.
And then you just got to pick whatever window you're watching or looking at. And then I could, I think you should just pop right up.
Where is the window? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. So I can share. Oh, I can share the. Okay.
Overwatch joined.
Can you see that?
Yep. Okay, there we go. Yep.
Okay, so that's the Google search result right there. And then if you see here how it says right here, there's an article that comes up. There's actual scientific proof that love will indeed make you blind. Let me see if DuckDuckGo has anything better. Yeah. I have to
Tony
share
Robbins is up there in the first result.
Yeah, of course.
One of the
Isn't that
first,
something?
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Wait, let me try to share the entire window or the entire screen. There you go. Can you see that?
Okay, let's see. Yep. You know what I do? I maximized it or as big as it can get. So yeah, yep. See it good.
Wait, damn it. Having a little technical issue here.
No worries.
Hold on.
Sure.
Hold on, my fan is running.
Don't hear it, so that's good.
Okay. How do I sorry for the technical problems, but this is all last minute stuff.
Yeah, this was all last minute. Yeah.
Okay.
We lost
There we
the whole
go.
window this time.
Okay, that's all right. Got it.
So you'll have to share again.
There we go.
Overwatch joined.
Okay. Now you got my whole window.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, actual scientific proof that love will indeed make you blind. Can you see that?
Yep. Got the whole screen up.
Okay, so I noticed that about 85% or so of near-death experiences, would you agree, Mark, are all involved with this love thing? And then there's another smaller percentage, maybe 15% or so, 20%, that can start off with a hellish experience. Sometimes it goes to the fear, and it uses fear instead of love. But for the most part, the majority is love.
Yep.
And then there are some with fear, and even when you break all those down and you look at those people's backgrounds, you find out that some really horrible people can have NDEs with all love and light, and then some really decent people can have a hellish experience. It's almost like maybe for that person, the love thing wouldn't have worked as well, so they turn it on to the hellish experience.
Yeah, they customize it, and I think for maximum outcome in their favor.
Right, exactly. And it's a way to get you to comply. Matter of fact, fear is used here a lot of times to get you to comply with things, isn't it? Isn't that right?
Oh yeah, yep. Same old song and dance up there, man.
Right. So, but the love thing is probably more effective most of the time. So it's used most of the time. So here's a actual answer to the some of the like that one in the last few podcasts you were doing where the woman in I forget what her name is that's interviewing the near death experiencers or people with
Melissa?
pre-birth memories.
Yeah, Melissa. Yep.
So she's apparently getting some comments. Hey, what about this? What about that?
Oh
And
yeah.
they still go. They're still using this. It's all about love concept, and now there's a reason, a logical reason. I don't know why this came to me the other day. I was just like, hey, is there any actual scientific data that love can be used to blind you in a sense, not obviously with your vision, but you blind you to your objectivity, your ability to think for yourself. And sure enough, looks like it makes a perfect tool to the reincarnation soul farmers to keep the crops here, incarnating on
Keep
Earth.
prime. Yeah, and we've talked about many times, is like, some people kill in the name of love. I mean, that can't be forgotten. I mean, you can have a loved one hurt or violated or something, and someone may seek revenge, or you can love someone so much that you're crazy and you treat them like crap. I mean, all sorts of different scenarios present themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have when people get things in their head that aren't even true, and then they begin stalking somebody, they become obsessed. Love is an emotion, and if anything, isn't there plenty of evidence that people that want to manipulate someone will use emotion to manipulate them? It's a critical component in with narcissists and even governments in general, right? Always constantly got to do it for the children. We got to do it for this. We got to do it for that, right? It's always that thing. always playing on emotion. Hello, Mark?
Yeah. Sorry, I was muted. I didn't realize it.
That's okay.
Yeah, playing on emotion constantly. I just want to give a big thank you to Careless for your extremely kind and generous super chat. Says, Mark, just wanted to say thanks for all the work you're doing. If people don't believe this, they should take into consideration that deception doesn't end when you leave the earthly life. People must hear about all the tricks that are waiting for them. Keep it up. Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. I really appreciate you. And you're right. I mean, it's the evidence is there, and it's just the same tactics being used, and they have all the information. I mean, that's something we talk about constantly, right? They have every second of every minute of every hour of every month of every year of your life to go through, to sift through. And it is no doubt some sort of AI type construct that processes this stuff, and it makes sure that, or it doesn't make sure, but it gets as close to making sure as possible that we're compliant, that we fall into a certain bubble, and that bubble, no matter what, is always going to be the matrix. And the key thing is to get you to believe in something exterior to yourself, or believe in the illusions, or whatever the case may be. And
Yeah.
and like this says right here, I mean, the red flags, not just
Yeah.
with blind below, the red flags are numerous, Dan.
Yes, massive red flag. So all the research that have led us here separately, independently, you know, because of all these red flags, and it is astonishing the stuff that many people are capable of ignoring. It's astonishing.
Hmm.
And even when they tell you the truth about something, even when they when it's like sometimes the media will try to get you to think a certain way, and then when you go and look at the official websites that they say are the official websites, you can find out that what they're telling you doesn't even jive with the official information, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like all the red flags are there, and yet a lot of people just will ignore it. It's amazing what people are capable of ignoring. I find it fascinating. I can't.
It's really
It's
something.
yeah, it really is. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, you know what else is interesting? How the negative NDEs are constantly um, just like they're suppressed unless you go digging for them, especially like interviews about them, like in a video form. I mean, you could find them on the NDERF and ION's websites, but you gotta dig for them, and it seems like they go out of the way to make sure that the negative ones are just not put out there, and they're just explained away. I mean, even with the coma experiences, same thing. Some people have great coma experiences while others have like absolute torturous hell. I mean, some of the things we've seen with comas and these NDEs that are negative are just horrific, horrific. And there is no doubt a conceited effort across the board in NDE research, and even, I mean, coma's not as much because, I mean, it's just not as talked about, but especially with NDEs, it's completely censored. It really is. We only get so much information from that, and you really, really got to dig.
Yeah, sure. The biggest example of that is the Monroe Institute, and even Robert Monroe himself ignoring his own book.
Yeah. 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 Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. When we were talking about that, I mean, it's crazy what goes on with that one. I mean, it's
How,
going against his own like process.
yeah, he goes against his own process, which he clearly establishes in the first book. And then he breaks all of his own rules. And then his own institute just ignores this massive bombshell that they drop in the middle of the second book with the Loosh account.
Exactly.
I
And
mean,
it's crazy because they will not talk about it. They will not. Really, the only one that's ever talked about it, and there is going to be a video on this. I've been working on it slowly, but Tom Campbell, who was part of the Monroe Institute. He's the big guy with the book My Big Toe.
yeah, I've read that.
Yeah,
I went through all that material. Some of his conclusions are mind-boggling. I don't have
exactly.
any idea or how he comes up with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe he's more of a scientist and stuff like that. But really, if you just look at it from an investigative perspective, like I do, it just you get led down to completely different conclusions. I mean, it's like a clues in a crime. You just follow the clues, and wherever the clues take you, that's probably where the truth is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible because, yeah, I mean, yeah, Tom Campbell's a piece of work. So, in short, from my recollection, he had seen Monroe not long after the whole Loosh period, and basically anything else Monroe does, according to the Monroe Institute, according to Tom Campbell, according to anyone who knew him or was related to him, everything else is factual. Everything else is spot on and perfect advice that someone can be given and real. But when it comes to the Loosh thing, radio silence, or the one and only individual to talk about it was Tom Campbell. I think William Buhlman may have mentioned, or Buhlman, I think it's Buhlman, but, look, clearly, by the way William Buhlman talks, he knows something's up, but he was also confronted with the Soul Trap thing not that long ago and made a statement on it, along with, I think one other individual, because the topic's obviously picking up steam, and it's just excuse after excuse. But if you listen to Buhlman's talks on it, it's clear that he knows something's wrong and something's up. And
he has to tread lightly because of he'll be canceled by his own group.
Yeah, and he's connected with the Monroe Institute. He has lectures. I don't know if he does them in person anymore, but I know he does some online things. But for a while, for many, many years, he was doing lectures and retreats and all that stuff. And Tom Campbell basically crapped all over Monroe's things on Loosh. So really, really interesting turn of events. And the Monroe Institute themselves will not talk about it. The only things I found in their archives, you can go to archive.org. You can search everything that they've ever put out, or everything and anything associated to the Monroe Institute. And the only thing I ever found, I wish I had it on hand, but there's one thing out there, and it's like, I guess, some kind of offshoot Monroe or Monroe Institute kind of group, I think in San Francisco or Northern California, something, regardless of where it is, it doesn't matter. And it's a post and about a meetup together, and it was, in short, Dan, it was talking about how Loosh is a good thing. Can help us.
Look, see,
swear to God, I gotta find it. Die, man.
You have a lot of philosophies out there, religions, etc., cosmologies, and they all attempt to give you some kind of, explanation that explains suffering and evil, and all the turmoil here, and all of them have to do a lot of cognitive dissonance, a lot of information massaging to maintain whatever it is they're peddling. And the reason I think that what you're talking about, what I've talked about for many years, and Wayne Bush and others, is starting to gain a little traction, is because in reality, our explanation really doesn't require cognitive dissonance. It doesn't require you to massage the information. It actually explains suffering and evil in a very logical and kind of like, there's no plot holes in our explanation. There's no plot holes. A lot of plot holes, and a lot of these
with everything else.
Everything else, they gotta do a little song and dance, and then they gotta tell you it's about, and then you got your life scripts, of course. Something like the Jeremy Renner thing that just recently happened. Is that have you seen that story about Jeremy Renner?
I don't believe so.
In January, he was run over by a 14,000-pound snowcat.
Oh my God.
And survived.
Oh God, the poor guy.
and they pieced him back together pretty much. I mean, he actually is kind of like he's a real life hero now. He's really trying to save his nephew, I think, who was in the way of this snowplow, and he got caught in the track, and the thing ran him over just, off to the side so the actual tires that bared the entire weight that were pulling the tank treads of this thing didn't actually press on him. Probably it was just the treads, but it was on pavement, and luckily it was really cold out. And then, a lot of times if it's freezing enough, your body's functions can slow down and actually help save your life in an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And he is like walking again. It's amazing. This thing broke, I don't know how many bones in his body, but yet not his spinal cord was not touched, right? It just somehow managed to miss that. And then you have he's of course famous, so everybody sees that whole event.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can have something like somebody else that isn't famous. They'll just have a simple car accident or something, and they're dead. They're done. It's the whole life script thing here is also quite fascinating, because it does seem to be a thing. I've heard you mention that many times. Could you explain where you came up with that term, or
which term? I'm sorry.
Life script.
Life script.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I just kind of I said it mainly the past life regressions and life between lives thing kind of got me to think of that term, because it continually talked about how we're there's these scripts, like we come up with these scripts. Yeah, we do have free will. We all have free will, but at the same time, it's ridiculous to say this, but it's a limited free will within the confines of the body. So I think until essentially we wake up and realize that something like a life script exists, I think you really have to be aware of how this place functions, then it essentially is difficult, right? It's I think everything kind of goes on autopilot. And even with that being said, a lot of stuff still is weird. Especially with things like synchronicities and things happening like with intuition. So yeah, I mean, the life script is it's a big one. I mean, I think that's how they keep us familiar. The other thing is how certain things, especially traumatic things from our past lives, carry over to this lifetime subconsciously, and we aren't necessarily aware of those things. And we can have all, it could be phobias, fears, resentment towards individuals that are in our soul group for whatever reason, all sorts of different baggage that comes along with this. And then of course there's like the whole attachment factor, and then you mix in like, oh well, Dan, you're gonna come down and you're gonna meet your wife, you're gonna have children, and you've got your mother, your father, and whoever, and there's some sort of whole thing that we've all been involved with together. Now, I think that's not the case with every single individual that we meet, but I think a lot of the important relationships that we're involved with definitely play its role.
Interesting. Yeah. Fascinating. Yeah.
I mean, the trauma and the phobias are huge. I mean, the past life regressionists, the hypnotherapists, even regular hypnotherapists who are not even into regressions, they will constantly tap into. So if you have a fear of heights or whatever the case may be, spiders, it doesn't matter what it is. If you have phobias or fears and you go to a hypnotherapist, they can remove those most of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of times they can. And the regression therapists always end up linking it to past lives. And it could be something like, oh, like you fell from a ledge and died, or you fell from a ledge and had a horrific injury, kind of like what we're going to talk about with this near-death experience. How he fell as a child from 32 feet. I mean, so clearly something like that, if he comes back, is going to be used as a tool against him to invoke fear, which is louche. So, you know.
Yep, it's all about the constant churning of chaos, confusion, fear, conflict, and apparently that makes purified louche, whatever that is. I don't know what it is exactly. Maybe it's a way for beings that have never incarnated into any physical plane, that only exist in like these what we call from here, like we refer to them as the spirit planes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like maybe it is like a drug. Maybe it's like a drug that makes them experience the exhilaration of the conflict without having to actually partake in it.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's interesting is you brought up that case with the snow machine accident.
Yeah, Jeremy.
There is a case. 1 minute. Sorry, I don't want to cough in your face, but there's a case that I ran across last year. Oh, and I've been trying to find it while we've been talking. Basically, a teenager and his girlfriend, male and female, and he is working with some sort of heavy machinery, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but it fell over on him, and he ended up losing literally all of his limbs.
Oh my gosh.
Arms, legs. Okay? And yeah, I know. And they put him in an induced coma right away. And they're talking, the doctors and nurses are talking with the girlfriend and the parents, and they say, "Listen, like, we can try to help him, but his life is going to be miserable. He's going to be miserable. Basically, I mean, he's got, it's horrendous when you look at him. You can't help but your heart just crushes for this kid." And they say, "Okay, we're going to wake him up, and let him decide what he wants to do." Because the hospital's like, "Look, he's not gonna have a life. It's gonna be very difficult." And well, lo and behold, they take him out of the induced coma, and they ask him point blank, "Listen, this is what's going on. It's going to take years to kind of get you through this process, through all these insane surgeries. Do you want to live?" They're asking him. And he says yes. The girlfriend's there, though, too, so remember that.
Of course, yeah.
You have the love attachment there, right?
Yeah.
And he's young. He's like, I think he was like 17 or 18, like really, really young. And he decides he wants to live. And you can follow his story on YouTube. I will try my best to find the channel. It is heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking. And this kid is a warrior, an absolute freaking warrior of epic proportions. He ended up getting out of the hospital sooner than they thought, but his pain is through the roof. I mean, everything is difficult. I mean, it's just, your heart aches to see it. But I don't know if you happen to be familiar with any of this. It's kind of hard to describe it because I don't have a channel or video to give you. I found it. Hold on. Okay. Wow. Okay, perfect. All right, so the name of the channel is I might be butchering this. Sabia and Loren. So
Okay.
they've got right now 577,000 subscribers. You can go and look at this channel and look at the journey from the beginning. I'm gonna text it to you right now there on the channel, and if you can, do you mind popping that up on your screen? Because for some reason, when I switch screens, it's blanking out
Yeah,
what
sure.
we're on. So I don't know why it's doing that,
Let me see this
but
channel.
I just want you to kind of look.
Yep, let me bring it
I
up
want you
here.
to kind of see exactly what condition he's in. It's. I mean, this kid is really a warrior. I mean, it's insane.
Sabian.
And you just look at this and you say to yourself, how, why is this happening? What kind of life script was he given where what is acceptable about this in any way, shape, or form?
There is a book that was written by she was a woman that was a contractor in Iraq, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's called something like, I can't remember. I read the book. Can't remember the name of it now. Unimaginable things or unanticipated. I can't remember the name. Anyway, she basically her unit was, or she's being transported by the military. She's a contractor, and the unit runs into an IED or something, and
she had an NDE, right?
Yes, she has this massive NDE. She meets the Council of Nine.
Yes.
There's the whole works here. I'm trying to bring this window up so people can see the channel while I'm talking to you. So she is in this.
If you do a screen share, I'll pop it up so people can kind of see. Because for some reason, when I switch over, it's just not working. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna put his channel on there. There you go.
OverWatch
Can you see it now?
Okay, great. Let me there we go. Perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yep. So she is in the NDE, and there's this whole discussion or exchange of it's not fair to call it anything how these communications like discussions, because it's all telepathic. It probably happens at super speeds, and we're not restricted by the brain when we're out of the body. And she is engaged in this whole debate in this book during her NDE about whether or not to come back, because her body's not completely, it's still able to survive. And in the meantime, I think there's an intoxication. It's not just this love effect like you say. It's more it's also an intoxicating.
Oh yeah,
thing.
I call it compared to a drug dealer,
right,
of epic proportions.
right. And here she is, and she, this is her book. She wrote, she's joking or actually laughing at the idea that when they send her back, maybe she should be blind.
Oh my God.
For the rest of her life. I mean, this is a fascinating book where she is talking about what other debilitating handicaps she could have for the rest of her life on Earth, and all this almost like the pain and suffering, and is something not taken seriously by her when she's in this state. It was very disturbing when I was reading it. I was like, how could anybody say that, plan that for themselves? I mean, but here you got this guy, right? This Sabia and Lauren guy. The story sounds absolutely tragic.
It's horrible.
And but wait, this guy has an arm. Did they reattach
Oh
something?
yeah. Maybe he's got his arms but not his legs. I don't remember. I could be off. It's been a while since I looked at it. Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, there's a lot. There's so much information. It's hard to keep. We've probably forgotten more than we
He
remember.
definitely doesn't have legs. That I'm sure of.
But I mean, you never know what people agreed to before they were born here. Like
That's
at some
the
point,
problem.
we're gonna arrange this horrible tragedy for you, and they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds interesting.
So
That sounds like a thing."
screwed up.
Yeah, it is screwed up.
And when you were talking about that other one, it made me think of one of the cases. I've talked about this one a lot on, I believe it was in Destiny of Souls, and it might have been like in the, I don't know, 1700s or 1800. I think 1800s, and there was a life script that was planned in advance, and I think it was a woman or a girl at the time, and before she came here, she worked out a life script where, in my opinion, she was being kind of pushed in this direction, because I think anyone who kind of agrees to these types of things, or even thinks that they owe this karmically through judgment and sinning and all that stuff, because that really seems to be the root of a lot of this, is or just even throw all that aside and just like, these are things that you need to spiritually evolve here. So we have a bunch of different little mini scams going on and deceptions that kind of link all this stuff together, and what exactly goes on with each individual and each lifetime, who knows? But in this case, in short, I'm going to sum it up, and I could be missing or
No, I'm looking at these little thumbnails on this guy's channel.
Yeah, that's great.
It's like he has no bottom of his body.
No.
I mean, everything below the stomach line looks like it's gone.
Yeah, I think for the arms, he got like extensions or something, or at least one of them. I don't know if it was both of them, but I think, or maybe it was the legs. I don't know. But anyways, in this 1800s case, the woman, or the girl, I'm sorry, she agreed in advance. She said, I want to live a life where I don't have to worry about financial security. I want to have loving parents, but I want to experience where I can read and observe. And they're like, oh yeah, okay. So then, here we go. Here's your life script. And the deal is like, she had to basically have a quote unquote accident by falling outside of like her parents' carriage, her horse carriage, and essentially be confined to a wheelchair. And that's what happened. And she was miserable, of course. And the crazy thing is when they were doing the regression on her, she said how like there was something subconsciously going on, or who knows what it was at the time, but at least like as she's looking at it from the perspective after it's happened and in the current lifetime, she said, oh well, I didn't want to go through with it. And there was almost like a force that pushed her out of the carriage to make the life script move along. But, or like she felt like something helped push her out there. It wasn't like her parents or anything. It was like some sort of force. Like I think it was like a big like bump in the road or something, and like the door swung open, and then of course she was disabled.
It's crazy. It's just crazy. And people agree to all this crazy nonsense. But then again, you look at what people agree to down here on a daily basis, and you're like, what is wrong with you?
I know.
But it's fascinating. This NDE you're about to present sounds really good. Looking forward to hearing it. I am really tired though, Mark. So
no worries, man. No worries.
I'm gonna have to listen with the rest of the audience.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna
you go rest,
check
man.
out. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm probably going to doze off very quickly anyway. I'll catch the rest of it tomorrow, but it will be, I'm sure it will be as fascinating as all the other ones you posted. So,
All right, brother.
appreciate
Well,
it.
thanks for stopping by tonight.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. I hope I gave you a little extra input for your show tonight. I was going to make my own video about that, but why not premiere it? Premiere that whole "love can make you blind" thing on your show. So.
Sure, yeah, and you can always, download and edit the video here and cut the segment and share it on your channel if you want, whatever, and add to it or whatever you want to do.
Oh yeah, thanks, appreciate that, and I hope you have a good night. And everybody out there tuning in. Thanks for watching, and I hope this all helps you out in some way.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. And don't forget to check out Dan at OverWatchChannel on YouTube and OverWatchProject.com. And he's also Overwatch Project on Odyssey.
Yes.
What about Rumble? I forgot. Are you on there?
I created an account, never posted anything there, and I've even heard some people getting. There's something about Rumble. I'm not sure how that's going to work out over there.
I think Rumble is another. This is my opinion. I think Rumble is equivalent to another BitChute, where honestly, I think they've already proven it. There's barely any improvements on the site. I mean, you only got. BitChute's ridiculous. I don't even think they have live streaming over there yet, do they? And they've taken all this money and made a bunch of promises and nothing's ever happened. And Rumble Odyssey's had a much less of a starting point to go with, and they've consistently put money into improving the platform. Rumble, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Odyssey is clearly great. And I love how when you're watching something, like if I watch one of your videos on Odyssey, it's so much better than anywhere else because I can stop the video anytime. I don't even need to look at what time I've stopped it. And I'm going to come back to it later. When I go to resume it,
it remembers.
It remembers where I was at and continues playing it from there, without me having to look at the bar on the bottom to figure out where I need to skip ahead to. It just automatically picks up where I left off.
Yeah, and Rumble doesn't do that.
No, nobody else. I don't see that.
Rumble doesn't even have a watch history, Dan.
No. The other thing about Odyssey is if you're using their Android app, you can turn off your phone screen and listen. If you're have a Bluetooth headset, you can listen. You can listen to it like a podcast. The Android app could use some improvement.
Definitely.
There's a heat up issue. It's using too much processor power on the Android phones, probably on iPhone too, and it gets a little hot. But outside of that, their app is great. Their search feature actually works. There's a ton of stuff, and there's videos on there you cannot see anywhere else.
Agreed. Yeah.
So
they've consistently shown that they don't mind putting money into the platform, and the only thing I really think they should improve on, or at least they should fix, is the replay chat, because it's like all posts as comments. That's that should be something they should work on. But Rumble, I don't even think they don't have it either. So, but other than that, they're still light years ahead compared to Rumble, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and they seem to have, so far at least, they blanketly allow free speech. So anything that is out there, it's ends up on Odyssey if it gets blocked somewhere else.
Yeah, and the one thing about BitChute is they happen to be. Last I checked, it's been a while. Maybe things have changed, but from what I recall, don't quote me on this, but I think they're on the, on the same street or very, very close to a very famous intelligence agency over in England.
Oh yes, yes.
Mission Impossible type
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
I'm almost positive they're like right. We're like neighbors.
Yeah, yeah, yep, sure, yeah. I have similar thoughts about the last pass where they, with the passwords happens to be based in Virginia.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Convenient
But
location.
that just it could just be a coincidence.
Sure.
But all right, Mark. This ought to be good. So have fun.
Thanks so much, man. Great.
Yep.
Great having you on, Dan. Thanks for joining tonight.
Thank you. Have a good night.
I'll see you soon, man.
See you, everybody. Bye.
Take care. All right. So big thanks to Dan for joining tonight. And we still got an NDE to review. So let's see where we at here. All right, you know what? I'm gonna, to make things better quality wise, I'm gonna take a few minutes break, hopefully not a full 5 minutes, where I could set it up where it's just gonna be a better quality recording, because I can do it directly through the video player versus the streaming software. It won't blank out or anything like that. I don't know what's going on with this tonight, but so let's just take about 5 minutes, hopefully less, but let's just see what happens. I just want to give a better quality presentation for the NDE portion and not have anything skipping, or freezing on anybody. Welcome Angel Wings to Last Timers Club. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. And again, I want to give a big thank to Careless earlier for very kind and generous super chat. Thank you. All right, so we'll be back here in about 5 minutes, and the NDE is buckle up, my friends. All right. So, are we getting any? Is the stream running okay on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble and Twitch? Because I'm getting some errors back. That's saying that not receiving enough video to maintain the stream to be smooth. So I assume that may be affecting some of you listening. But I'm going to continue. And if you don't mind just dropping a comment on whatever platform you're listening on tonight, I'd appreciate it. Just to give me a heads up. Yes, saw I was muted. Sorry about that. Okay, so in the meantime, I'm going to move on. Okay, YouTube's okay. Sounds okay. Good. Thank you so much to everyone out there responding. I appreciate it. Okay. All right. What was I going to say here? Before we kind of move along into the NDE, I wanted to give there was a very nice subscriber who I spoke with a few times and wish we had the opportunity to speak together a little bit more. Her name was Katherine. Some of you may have seen her around. And at first I wasn't sure, but I knew she had a very, very aggressive cancer. And she has since passed and moved along on her journey of sovereignty. And, I haven't felt any sort of connection with her. I mean, I didn't know her extremely well, but I mean, I knew her a little bit. And we had some deep conversations about the soul trap and everything like that. And, from the very beginning, it wasn't looking good. And so I just want to send out, a message to everybody and her and wherever she may be out in the far, far ether outside the matrix that, we all care about you and we're happy that you made it out. Because there has been literally zero sign of her being around afterwards. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was, and this is Wren Star lost her mother recently, and Wren knew Katherine. So, just want to send out condolences and to Wren and maybe add both of them to your meditations, or send out a little intention of support. And hey, we all gotta move along sometime. And I don't know, I feel very, very good about Katherine, and I know Wren spoke with her mother a number of times about the topic too. So, and was proud of Wren for being able to, have a sovereign mindset. I don't know exactly the extent of what she believed in, or if she took anything seriously about this. I know Wren does, but I don't know about her mother. But, Wren, if you're listening, I just want to let you know my heart goes out to you, sister, and I'm thinking of you. And same goes for Katherine. So I just wanted to say that really quickly. And before we go into the NDE and everything else, just a reminder, this channel is for educational purposes only, or maybe for legal terms, entertainment purposes only. And you can find the channel also not just on YouTube, but on Rumble and Odyssey. As Dan and I were talking about, I think both of us prefer Odyssey as the alternative platforms. YouTube's great because it has all the features, but at the same time, you gotta be careful about everything, and it's a pain in the ass. But the important part is getting the word out, right? I also have 2 YouTube backup channels. And if you're new here, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell on this channel and the 2 backups. Selecting the bell for all, make sure that you get the live stream notifications, but unfortunately that doesn't always work either. So I do have a Twitter, an Instagram, a Facebook, that all those platforms just kind of serve as notifications. And I also have an email list. Should anything happen here, it's like there's just multiple ways to kind of connect and make you aware of any situation that may occur in the future. And what else is there? Oh yeah, I do Twitch once in a while, play video games, do Truth in Gaming with some light commentary. It's not some professional production. It's very just chill. So if you're looking, sometimes a lot of times I'll play games with truth bombs in them, and sometimes not, but I try to at least make you aware if that's the case. And if you're interested in getting a little extra content each month and a backlog of the members content, feel free to join either Odyssey or YouTube memberships. Your support is always appreciated but never expected. I also have Stream Elements and Stripe as an alternative way to support the channel if you'd like. And Odyssey, Stream Elements, and Stripe all take the least amount of fees compared to YouTube, but anything's appreciated if able. But I don't expect anything, because you're going to get the most important things on this channel for free all the time. But if you want some, a little different information, a little added information each month, feel free to join the memberships. Okay, so let's move along. And yeah, I mean, exactly. Katherine is free of the Matrix now. Thanks for sharing with us. That's right. Just wish I got to talk to her a little bit more. So, yeah. Very, very sweet. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into this NDE. Buckle up, my friends.
I held my breath since it was so terrible, but at the same time I knew that I wouldn't be able to hold it for too long. I also had a certain longing for death as a kid, so I thought, what's the worst that could happen? I will end up in heaven with my father. That was the release. So I took one deep breath and inhaled a whole lungful of ether by doing so. All I know is that I then, like a rocket, flew away to the heights. An interesting fact was that I never looked down. I just went up further and further with an immense speed.
Okay. I highly recommend checking out Thantos.tv, and they have a YouTube channel as well. I'm just muting right now for copyright purposes, but that won't be long. And here we go.
You studied mechanical engineering, you're a drawer and painter, co-founder of the Arnold Schwarzenegger Museum in Graz, and the author of a German book called Do the Deceased Smile Over Us? The reason for your connection to the socially taboo topic, death, arose more than 60 years ago. You had 2 near-death experiences, one after another, as a 12-year-old boy during the summer in 1960. Those experiences have led to many insights throughout your life that we will talk about. But first, I would like you to tell us what exactly happened back then.
I'm sorry about that. I don't know if you guys heard me doing mic tests. I apologize if you did. Hopefully you didn't.
The many insights throughout your life that we will talk about. But first, I would like you to tell us what exactly happened back then. I believe it was during the summer holidays on a farm.
Ja, ich komme aus einer Großfamilie. Meine Mama hatte 6 Kinder und
I come from a big family. My mother had 6 children and 1 grandchild. My father had hydropericardium and passed away in 1950. Therefore, my mother was a single parent. In order to save on provisions and have 1 child less to feed, I was sent to a farmer by Caritas, where I could take a rest. I was indeed able to recuperate. The air was fresh and clean over there, but back in those years, every kind of work effort was needed. The term child labor was not known then. I was obviously very curious, being the city boy I was. I had to crawl in the hayloft and look for chicken egg nests. I crawled around everywhere and did indeed find many eggs. Eventually they noticed, this boy can do anything. He crawls around with no fear at all. One day the hay was being transported to the hayloft with these long wooden pitchforks. I had to take the hay while being up there and then stuff it into all the corners and gaps. At the same time, I'd been given the task of removing tufts of green grass from the hay. If I spotted some, I had to grab it and crawl forward to the end of the hayloft. There I had to throw it down into a 10-meter deep abyss. At the bottom there was the threshing floor. The reason for that, by the way, was that the grass would begin to ferment sooner or later, which could even lead to farm fires. For a long time, people did not understand why all of a sudden farms started to burn. So I took this responsibility very seriously and worked very hard. I once collected several tufts of grass so that I wouldn't have to crawl to the abyss every single time. I was out of breath at one point, grabbed the tufts and crawled all the way to the end. But I was so short of breath that after throwing the grass down, I simply fell down after it. Apparently I passed out during the fall and, for the first time, I saw stars. It didn't feel like falling, but rather like floating, just like a feather. There were some really special perceptions, but no fear involved during this incident. Of course, I did not notice the impact itself. When I woke up later on, I saw many people around me. Among them was a veterinarian whom I knew, but I still didn't know what was going on. The farmer then said to his daughter, "Take the bus to the children's hospital with Helmut." The drive, with an open clavicle fracture, took 2.5 hours from St. Johann in der Heide to Graz.
Can you imagine that? 2.5 hours. The clavicle fracture. That's just horrible. Horrible.
Whom I knew, but I still didn't know what was going on. The farmer then said to his daughter, "Take the bus to the children's hospital with Helmut." The drive, with an open clavicle fracture, took 2.5 hours from St. Johann in der Heide to Graz. Nowadays, that would be considered outrageous, but back then, there was no other means of rescue. Eventually, I was admitted to the hospital. But prior to that, the farmer had written a note to his daughter. I assume it said that he had reanimated me and that I had been clinically dead. Something along those lines must have happened, because as soon as I arrived at the hospital and the young woman gave this piece of paper to the nurse, her face changed immediately, and from then on, I was suddenly treated like a child of God. A youth caregiver came along.
Now, what's interesting is he's talking about how all of a sudden he was treated like a, child of God. And insert a convenient woman who's at the hospital and clearly spiritually evolved and in the know about not just like a few things, but many different topics that I think all of us have taken our journey on and run across. So wait till you hear some of what's brought up.
Like a child of God. A youth caregiver came along as well. Her name was Anna Henneberg-Braungarten.
Anna Henneberg-Braungarten, das war eine Lady.
She was a high-class lady who had left her belongings and took care of people's souls. From the day we met, she took care of me and she loved me. From her, I learned how to draw, paint, think, and pray.
How long were you in the hospital?
In total, at least 3 months. Of course, many things happened during this time. On my arrival, they had examined me first and put a cast on me. After 3 days, the doctors came back and said, "This is not working." They looked at the X-ray images and noticed that the cast was not helping. So they came to the conclusion that I needed surgery. Prior to that, I had received a book from my aunt Anna, that's how I used to call her. I was supposed to read this book secretly. It was called The Tibetan Book of the Dead. She knew that I had been revived, so she handed me the book and told me that no one else should see it. I was not afraid at all, and so I was brought to the operating room.
What happened there?
I had never seen an operating room before.
So before he gets into his experience, you have to ask yourself, here is a young child. We don't exactly get the age that he is, but I don't know, let's assume, 7 to 12, 13, somewhere around there. And conveniently meets a woman who's there and ready and waiting to share spiritual knowledge with him. And look, what you hear about her is awesome. Like she was there to help. But at the same time, there's definitely some life script stuff going on here, because the way things kind of pan out for him are wild. Absolutely wild.
I was laid on a white plastic couch, and they began to cover my whole body. Only the area of the collarbone stayed visible and was being covered with a tincture, probably something for the sake of disinfection. Then they put a mask on my face, just like these FFP2 masks, which we see today.
Let's not talk about
Then they
those.
put some drops of ether on it. I didn't know what it was back then, but the smell was absolutely horrible.
That was common back then.
It was common, yes. The first drop felt like a whole ton was dropped onto my face. It was awfully loud. I held my breath since it was so terrible, but at the same time I knew that I wouldn't be able to hold it for too long. I also had a certain longing for death as a kid, so I thought, what's the worst that could happen? I will end up in heaven with my father. That was the release. So I took one deep breath and inhaled a whole lungful of ether by doing so.
So interesting how, hey, I can be with my father now. Poor Helmut lost his father at a very, very young age and wanted to be reunited. So you have that kind of soul group connection. And right before he goes out on the, surgical slab operating table, that's what he's thinking. Like, oh, well, at least I can be reunited or something like that. What's interesting is what happens next, and not necessarily involving his father, but there is this, what's the worst that can happen to me? Oh, no big deal. Just death. But most of the time you would think in this scenario that the father would play a major role, but he doesn't.
Release. So I took one deep breath and inhaled a whole lungful of ether by doing so. All I know is that I then, like a rocket, flew away to the heights. An interesting fact was that I never looked down. I just went up further and further with an immense speed.
That means you'd left your body.
Back then, I didn't know that, but in retrospect, things are clearer. Of course, that must have been the moment where the soul, the energy, left the body so that a near-death experience might occur. Yes, that must have been it.
What else did you experience then? Consciously,
I remember that I went up and it went like a tornado, which became narrower towards the end. Eventually, I became
So it's kind of like a tunnel with like a funnel.
a small dot. At the top, there was a dark essence into which I fell, just like
Okay, so he's talking about a dark essence with what I fell in. And I don't know about you guys. It's not a dark scene by any means, but in the movie Soul by Disney Pixar, there's like it very early on in the film, a kind of trap door that opens and drops Joe into the for lack of a better word, like the waiting room, right? The in-between world. So I kind of got those vibes from him, but minus it being dark.
eventually I became a small dot. At the top, there was a dark essence into which I fell, just like a pebble that was dropped onto a dark lake.
Wish I could
And
play you the
so I
video.
sank down. The beauty of it was that I knew it, that I had this knowledge. I do not exist anymore. All I am is this small dot, just like a pea, so to speak. So I dived into the deepest depths. I saw interesting faces and grimaces along the way. Luckily, I already knew how to interpret them because I had been allowed to read the Tibetan Book of the Dead beforehand.
what happened after you experienced this falling down?
I, as a dot, dived into it deeper and deeper, whilst having this knowledge or feeling that I existed, but that I didn't exist. It's very hard to describe. Eventually, I realized that I didn't exist anymore, which was inexplicable.
Okay, so he realized that he didn't exist anymore. So it's like a weird transition phase here. And this was something I kind of wanted to get Dan's opinion on. We've gone over some cases where certain individuals have an experience. There aren't many, okay? But there are some out there where the matrix is not fully connected to the individual who's having the NDE yet. And in those moments, they're very brief, but because the NDE is so powerful and overwhelming that the details of the very beginning of the experience tend to get overlooked. And, well, I'm not saying this is one of those cases because it really borders on it being the case. I don't think it is, but just we need more information to really thoroughly get an answer here. But anyways, there are these moments in specific NDEs where the matrix is not interrupted yet, where they are in whatever state they're in, but free. Like they're just like they're self-aware and going with the flow and doing their thing, and then all of a sudden some interruption pops up, and we can call it the light, we can go to the void, and then it ends up with the light. Whatever the case may be, the distraction, the illusion is there, ready and waiting to be picked up on. And those experiences are few and far between, but for like I re-listened to this experience probably about 3 different times, especially like the early parts. And like part of me just feels like there was an opportunity there for him, but I just can't quite put my finger on it and say definitively, because then you're going to hear more information, which leads to clearly matrix interruptions. But at the same time, remember, he was given the Tibetan Book of the Dead shortly before this experience, and even acknowledges how that book helped him realize I guess you can call it the illusions, but still went along with the illusions. But I'm not blaming him at all. So, if Helmut is hearing this at all, it's nothing personal. It's just an observation about you and how this system works. That's all. Never, ever, ever personal.
Scribe. Eventually, I realized that I didn't exist anymore, which was inexplicable. Then, at one point, this tiny dot began to glow, and it arose.
So he goes from not feeling like, he's there, or that, I don't know, can I say doesn't mean anything, to all of a sudden, oh, there's a glow. Well, here comes the Matrix.
Then, at one point, this tiny dot began to glow, and it arose. On the surface, I noticed a huge spinning wheel, and all of a sudden, this darkness turned into beaming light. Inexplicable to me, but it was without any shadow. How can one imagine a light without shadows? So I came up to the surface again, and I noticed I do exist, but there is no body. There is just pure knowledge. After that, some other impressions.
Okay, so there's just pure knowledge. How many times do we hear from the Matrix and experiencers where they had all the knowledge in the universe, they had all the knowledge in this and that, but remember, he's basically saying he had access to the knowledge. Remember, we've been cut off, we've been memory wiped, we've been browbeaten and abused to the hills. And, your life script may be a little bit easier this time, or it may have been hell many lifetimes before, or it may have been good or great. Who knows? We each kind of come here and we're memory wiped. And that's where the root of the problem lies. It's like, if you're being memory wiped lifetime after lifetime, and there's this karma and judgment and sinning and atonement and everything else going on, then there's clearly a lack of information. But all of a sudden, once you leave your body, the Matrix is ready and waiting to provide this illusion of access to all information, but it's feeding the information to us. It's not as if it's already preordained or that's not the wrong word, but that's the wrong word. But you know what I'm saying? It's like it's information being transmitted. Some NDEers will flat out say they were being downloaded the information, right? The information is being given to them over and over and over again. We see this through experiencer cases, NDE experiencer cases, right? So you got to ask yourself, I know it's hard to do this, but you have to put yourself in the eyes of a diabolical, weird, creepy, parasitic type of mindset. And if you're going to try and trick others, what do you want to do? Well, when we leave our body, we are more opened up. We're more connected with our essence. But if you can kind of overwhelm someone and blast them with information. And because they're already going along with the scam, then it makes it so much easier to be able to be tricked. What happens if you take the sovereign path? What happens if you take the route of non-interference and liberation and say, hey, I'm going to go my own way, do my own thing, and see what the hell happens. And that's it. Create my own realm where I'm protecting myself, allowing my organic essence, my organic memories to come in, and instead take control of me versus just buy into whatever this system is selling over and over and over, lifetime after lifetime, experience after experience within the overall system. Like Dan and I were talking about earlier, it's not just about what's experienced here on Earth, right? There's got to be other realms involved, because we know the astral's involved with this, but there has to be other physical realities too. There has to be other mind wipe realms linked to this place. Again, think in terms of if you're going to be some deceptive, creepy system. Are you going to just put all your eggs in one basket into the earth realm? Hell no. Are you going to put all your eggs in one basket into the astral realm? Hell no. You're going to make sure that you have everything set up in a way where you're going to be able to at least funnel individuals into certain ways of thinking, certain realms, certain logistics, soul groups, whatever, so that you have the maximum ability for success. That's all it cares about. And if it could kind of derail you and throw you off a little bit by, making you feel special and that you're all knowing and this and that, but as long as that information is contained within the matrix system itself, it's winning. It's winning. And the whole point is for us to think bigger beyond all of this, beyond the matrix. We are lacking information outside of the matrix. Everything we hear over and over and over again is clearly systems linked within the overall matrix geography, I guess you can say, the matrix experience. But what happens when we think beyond that and stand up for ourselves and do what we need to do for ourselves as individuals, not as a group, but for ourselves? We deserve better. We all deserve better. And all I'm saying is, look, I don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. And the best thing we can do is just stand up for ourselves and take our quote unquote time, regardless of how time factors into all this. You know, my whole theory on time is evolving and changing by the day. And even though we hear in so many experiencer cases that time doesn't exist, what if it exists on some level? What if it exists on some small, minute level in these types of situations? Then, but it alters it in a way where we are, where we think that it doesn't exist. But there's something still there. Remember, these are matrix constructs. There is a very fluid path that happens over and over and over again in these cases. Doesn't matter where the hell you are in the world. It customizes the situation and it makes it personal for you in an effort to get you to continue to buy into the BS. That's all it cares about. So why not think better and bigger? We deserve it. We deserve it. So just take time for yourself when you leave here. and isolate yourself temporarily. I'm not saying forever, for eternity. I'm just saying, some people like to say that, like, oh, you mean I'm just going to stay in my own realm forever and rot in eternity? No. Just give yourself the opportunity. We all don't know what the hell happens. Nobody knows. But what we do know is that there's clearly an ongoing system of deception, and it proves itself over and over and over again. So why not think bigger and beyond all of that? That's all I'm saying. That's it. Isolate yourself so that you can connect with 100% of your true essence, so that in the end, you can make a rash, lucid decision on what you want to do for you. And if that involves meeting up with others, or, you know, like, come on, we're eternal beings. You think we haven't been to other realms that, or other systems that are not parasitic, and enjoyed ourselves and had a good time and had 100% access to ourselves and free will and everything? I think we've all had that. But we've been blockaded from that information. So don't you think that you deserve to tap into that? You do. Trying to just kind of show, look, we're dealing with a clearly deceptive system, and you know, life itself, while we're in the physical, should prove that. But it doesn't only exist here, it exists in the astral. So think bigger. We do not have consistent information, let alone almost any information, about what the hell we've all done before we came here, or before we came into the system itself. Everything seems to be based on the sensory experience. That should be the biggest red flag, with the exception of the memory wipe, obviously. That should be a huge red flag. If everything is based on the sensory experience, visuals, hearing, telepathic communication that involves things that are familiar with us. Remember, the continuity of familiarity. That's what they bank on. Why is there Greco-Roman architecture that is pervasive in many experiencer cases? Pre-birth memories, life between lives, NDEs. Why are certain things familiar to us? Because it's all part of the deception. And we just have to transcend all of that and do what we need to do for us and make a rash, lucid decision with 100% access to our essence. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's it. And see what the heck happens. There's a reason why we don't have answers outside of here. And that's because we're being bamboozled with matrix crap. And the system proves that over and over and over again. All right, kind of done. That's kind of the soapbox moment of the night, I hope. We'll see.
Pure knowledge. After that, some other impressions followed. By the way, I never looked out for my deceased father, which I always wanted to. I didn't care at all. I was in a state of pure bliss, which is, once again, difficult to grasp. Everything was perfect the way it was, without any doubt. Then I had this perception that there must be a loving God. One doesn't see him, but he is there. It was very fascinating. I arose and became a star, which had many other stars around it. My eyes caught planet Earth, even though I had no eyes since I had no body. At least, I assume it was planet Earth. But I began to witness what was going on down there.
Did I get this right? You experienced the motion itself whilst at the same time witnessing the scene from the outside? You basically perceived yourself from the inside and outside.
This is where it gets interesting. There was no inside or outside. That's what makes it so unbelievable. There is no inside or outside. It is all oneness. There are no covers, no limits, and no perimeters. Everything is open. Everything that is exists, and everything that is not exists as well. That, again, is really difficult to imagine. Everything exists in the mind only, in a subtle substance. It is not visible, but it exists. I simply knew that at this point. There is a loving God, and this God is invisible, but he can manifest himself any time. Once I saw the earth, I knew that something must have manifested down there. It cannot be anything else but the work of God, was my perception. I began to witness human beings down there, which was unforgettable. To me, it felt like a play. It was a whodunit. It was a drama. It was comedy, and it was science fiction.
It was like a play.
Everything was there.
It was like a play. It was like a comedy, a drama. And that's exactly what it seems to be like. And why is it like that? Because of the life script. The life script is what exposes all of this. And it's up to us to find ourselves and reclaim our essence instead of just going along with the clown show. But that takes time, right? We're not born awake. We're not born seeing this world for what it is. We may be, but then everything is kind of conditioned. And that goes kind of to like the video I've done on early childhood development. If you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, feel free to. Because we are conditioned. And it starts from a very young age and it goes back as far as history presents itself. It does not matter where you lived, where I lived, what time period you lived in. The same thing happens over and over and over again. And that's, our sovereignty is just stomped on.
Whodunit. It was a drama. It was comedy, and it was science fiction. Everything was there simultaneously. Once again, quite difficult to grasp for the mind. I saw those people and how they were fighting and arguing down there and acting out their worst selfish behaviors. Everyone wants to be in the right. Then I became aware of the fact that indeed everyone is in the right from everyone's own narrow, egocentric point of view, from the first-person perspective. I, on the other hand, encountered another right up there, which included everything. Everything is right and perfect. It is absolute. And down there, they're fighting about the smallest things, about things they see and don't see. It was just insane. When I looked at their heads, I saw a sparkling light on some of them. Around the heads of others, there was fog, which I couldn't classify.
So, light versus fog. It's an interesting thing to think about, right? It seems like what he's conveying is exactly what we're dealing with. Now, we can, it's like if you're not aware of kind of how the system functions, or if you're only kind of halfway aware about this system and what happens here, then perhaps you give a certain type of frequency output to the realm that perhaps Helmut picked up on. It's like you're either clouded or you're not. But I think the whole thing with being self-aware is truly about breaking down this reality, the illusion to its core. Like, I think if you're missing certain components here, it's still difficult and not necessarily going to give you. I don't think anyone will ever have the full picture, but like the rough draft outline, right? And that seems to just pop up constantly. But why is everything personalized and set up in a certain way to customize a certain experience for NDEers, for example? Because, like we talked about with Dan, it wants to make sure that this system is going to get you to believe into it, that you're going to buy into the gaslighting that exists, and that you give it the credence that it so much desires, so that you can just hang on there one more lifetime. And regardless whether you're coming back here or not, it's all about just getting you to buy into the illusion one more time.
I only had this perception that everyone is a star, just like me, and that everyone was made from stardust, so to speak, which still glows, but only diffuse, not in the same way as a shining star in the sky does, vibrating and oscillating. They were basically dead stars, at least in my perception. Another aspect was that this egoism which was going on down there was basically ridiculous, but resulted in a huge realization of mine. All people act out of unknowingness, but there is a tremendous knowing out there, as I have experienced it. Then, all of a sudden, this Christian saying, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," made automatic sense to me. It should rather go like this: Father, forgive them, for they don't know the future consequences of their actions and doings. I didn't think that myself.
All right, so if this is his mindset, and it clearly seems to be the case, then let's go back to what we were talking about again with Dan. Life scripts. If you come here and you have a life script, but your memory wiped, then, or whatever the case may be, you have the karma, the judgment, the sinning, all of this stuff, take all of it into account and never forget that we come here memory wiped, and we have to rely on adults to bring us up. You know, a lot of animals out in the wild can survive from babies. Not all, but a lot. We can't. You throw a baby out on the street that has to go fend for itself, chances, high chances are that it's not going to survive. It's not going to be able to feed itself, give itself water, this and that. Like, throw a newborn out on the street. It's just, it's not going to happen. So the life script plays a massive role. And regardless of whether that comes from the karma, the sinning, the judgment, or the belief system ingrained in many of us that we're here to spiritually evolve and yada, 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 everything's love and light, and, you know, all this stuff, it's all excuses to prevent you from finding you, rediscovering you, and that you are a sovereign being. You can liberate yourself if you just stick up for yourself and say, I'm not going to buy into this, anything that this system is selling anymore. No matter how appealing it is, it's shutting everything off and saying enough is enough.
"Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do," made automatic sense to me.
Get sick to my stomach here and
It should rather go like this: "Father, forgive them, for they don't know the future consequences of their actions and doings." I didn't think that myself, it just appeared, and I was quite happy about that. So I took it with a light head and amusement, since there were so many stars on their way with me, so many souls. It was a benevolent smile, while being aware of the fact that they don't yet know better, but they'll learn. Just like a mother who says to her child, "Well, you couldn't know that yet. I know it. Stay calm for you."
Okay, you couldn't know that yet. Stay calm. I mean, it's a great comparison. I really like how he puts this out there because it's so true. It's like, oh, well, you haven't woken up in this lifetime, but you'll get there eventually. Probably what, 500,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 lifetimes. Who knows how many lifetimes? Until eventually you pierce the veil of your true essence and say, enough is enough.
The light head and amusement, since there were so many stars on their way with me, so many souls. It was a benevolent smile, while being aware of the fact that they don't yet know better, but they'll learn. Just like a mother who says to her child, "Well, you couldn't know that yet. I know it. Stay calm, for you're going to learn it as well." It is not a boastful knowing, but rather a benevolent, caring smile. That's what I felt there.
Your main perception, whilst looking down on Earth, was that this is the materialistic world, but in comparison to real life, it rather looks like a stage, and that it is out of ignorance that many given conditions do have a meaning there, whereas they actually should not.
Correct. Those aspects are difficult to understand for the mind.
By design.
Later, in 1969, when space travel was a current topic, I saw an image that showed an astronaut taking a look at planet Earth. That was very interesting to me, since it was exactly the point of view that I had. I only began to understand afterwards what exactly had happened. I became more and more conscious of it in retrospect, step by step. Therefore, I came to the conclusion that only consciousness exists, and the opposite pole of that is unknowingness, which I had seen in those people down there. They act the way they do due to unawareness. They don't act viciously, but always unknowingly.
How did your experience
Well, look, there are some out there who get off on furthering the loose agenda, right? Anyways, it's watch my words, I guess. It's I guess if you have a system that is continually reinforcing itself while you're here, it makes the odds stacked against you even higher, where you're not going to ask the big questions. You're not going to take care of yourselves and reclaim your essence, because it's so difficult to get there. And that's the beauty of doing research into this topic, is that it shows it up front and center. I mean, studying the human body, like there's loads and loads of issues, cognitive dissonance, pain, suffering, torture, where you end up being born, what country you're in, right? All sorts of different factors can come into play. And a lot of us are lucky. Never forget that. A lot of us are lucky. Like, we have heat, we have air conditioning, we have electricity, we have food on the table every night. And even if things are difficult, it's you can't discount the horrors that go on around the world and put yourself in their shoes. And I think Western society has done a really good job of kind of masking all of that, making the horrors of the world be realized because of distraction. But if you're in the horrors of the world and happen to reincarnate, let's just say North Korea or whatever the case may be, not in the caste system. I mean, so many different things that can occur, right? Living in a hut, no electricity, no plumbing, no running water, no food. Got to go out and hunt for your food, or you got to rely on charities, or, you got to send the family of 5 out to the field 20 miles away to bring home a cow, or pick berries, or bring water home. There's so many different scenarios that we can all be in, and many of us are not. But just think for a minute about putting yourself in their shoes. We all suffer, but some have it much, much worse. But the Matrix always makes sure that suffering on some level is going to happen. Doesn't matter who you are, where you live, what you're doing. But there are still certain degrees of suffering out there that are absolutely horrific. So, strip away the ego and everything else, and try to relate with what a good portion of the world's or the realm's society is dealing with out there, that don't have electricity, don't have the heat, don't have air conditioning, don't have a full fridge every night. Put yourself in their shoes and say, oh, well, look, yeah, I've got air conditioning and heat, but many don't. And how do they feel tonight? Why is the human body designed in a certain way methodically to fail? To betray you. I mean, really, when you think about it, the human body only has 25, 30, 40, if you're lucky, years of kind of where you're okay. And that's if you're lucky. But then what's happening most of the time in between all that? You're working, you're trying to support your friends, your family, do what you need to do for yourself to put food on the table, to pay those electricity bills so you don't get shut off, pay the rent, pay the mortgage. And the system doesn't care about you or me or anyone else. All it cares about is being fed with its delicious loosh. That's all it wants.
Continue. Was there a point where you wanted to return?
Always you two unaware.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is take a quick break here. Been going for quite a while, and there's much more to come. Just as a reminder, this channel is for educational purposes only, or entertainment purposes in the eyes of the law. So, all right, we'll see each other shortly. Probably not going to be don't listen to me. I'll be back in about 5-6 minutes. Thank you. Just as a reminder, this channel is for educational purposes only, or entertainment purposes only, according to the letter of the law. Okay. So we're going to get right back into the near-death experience and coma of Helmut. Here we go. Thank you for your patience, by the way. It's like the worlds collided. I needed to take a break, and of course, the dog needed to go out late at night. So let's roll.
They don't act viciously, but always unknowingly.
How did your experience continue? Was there a point where you wanted to return to your body?
Well, I can't say what I wanted to do because I didn't exist in that sense. This decision must have been made from a higher viewpoint or manner.
So this decision must have been made from a higher viewpoint. Mind you, remember, he went from he went through this whole process and ended up, all of a sudden kind of being opened up, for lack of a better term. And the Matrix is going to say, hey, remember Earth? Remember what's going on down there? We need you. We need you to come back down here so that you can do better for, you can build up the consciousness of society or whatever, you get my point. He basically says it.
Decision must have been made from a higher viewpoint or manner. I simply had the wish to be down there again and to pass on my knowledge to those people. Like I said, it was no decision. The decision was made by itself.
The decision was made by itself. Now, what would happen if Helmut didn't interact or stood up for himself before all this was to occur, right? What if he's hurling down the funnel, so to say? It wasn't the tunnel, but like a funnel. That's how he described it. Ended up in this realm of where he was like a little orb, so to say. What would have happened if he stuck up for himself right from the jump? Remember, he went through and saw, like, you know, lost souls, basically. And, you know, point blank said to us, you know, how it was linked to the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So he knew how to handle them. These are the illusions of the Matrix that are being presented. But if you're already going along with everything, or, you know, the famous phrase, curiosity killed the cat, then everything is kind of, the wheels are in motion. Well, pun intended. I mean, you know, the wheel of samsara is in motion to get you to buy into a certain belief system and just the way things are supposed to be. And whether you get yourself out of that or not is up to you. But what if you didn't interact with it from the very beginning? You're aware, you're lucid, you know you've left your body. I mean, basically, kind of like the rule of thumb is like if you leave your body and you're not purposely trying to do it, or even if you are purposely trying to do it, you know, set yourself up for success where, you know, you're not going to allow these things to manipulate you or dictate anything to you. Because as we're hearing it from his own voice is, you know, it's predestined, it's prearranged, everything is the way it's supposed to be. Well, that's because this is his life script. But what if he interjected at the very beginning and didn't even allow himself to get to the point where this acknowledgement was a thing?
I understood then that I was consciousness. But the decision on how conscious I was didn't depend on me. There was some higher power. That was the first time when I felt certain that there is a loving God. I could only accept that was what was. There was no discussion. What is there to discuss anyway? It is perfect. This acceptance has led me to a knowing, which I call faith, at a higher level.
Were you religious prior to this experience?
I was not religious, but I went to church a lot with my mother. We visited the grave of my father. I witnessed something interesting there.
Interesting story
She stood in front of the grave, went deep into herself, and began to talk to my father as if he was sitting right in front of me, just like you do.
After death
She laughed and cried in succession, which was not understandable to me as a child. I only registered and accepted that. It was quite a performance. I asked her once, "Mum, who are you talking to?" "To your father." "Where is he?" "He is there, in heaven." I replied, "What is he doing there?" "He looks over us and he helps us. We can ask him any question. He is always there for us." So I thought, well, if Father is doing so well in heaven, I want to be there as well. That's one beautiful home.
Is that where this
makes sense, right? Makes sense to feel that way as a child. He had trauma at a very young age where he lost his father. And Mom is at the gravesite having full-on fledged conversations with Dad which is, AKA after death communication. And this, from what I can tell, seems to be a regular thing going on. And Helmut is witnessing it.
Well, if Father is doing so well in heaven, I want to be there as well. That's one beautiful home.
Is that where this longing for death, which you felt as a child, came from?
Yes, that's how the longing for death had developed. I understood that much later, too.
You then returned to life on Earth with the need to pass on your knowledge.
Yes, in hindsight, I came to know that after my clinical death from being over-anesthetized, I was in a coma for 7 days. I was
Matrix marketing department coming through in full force.
I was in a coma for 7 days. I was told that by Aunt Anna, whom I have mentioned previously.
Anna von Henneberg. You said that there's a soul connection. She prayed for you to wake up again. How did this special relationship develop?
I came to the hospital as a blonde child with bright blue eyes. This woman must have been some kind of special being. When she saw me for the first time, she looked into my eyes and called me a child of God. She was also giving religion classes, by the way. I still have letters and notes from her where she wrote, "My dear child of God, Helmut." It's not easy to put this into words.
My dear child of God. My dear child of God. Remember, external forces being cast down upon him within the belief systems. And, well, he's going to come back. And what do we have? His interaction with the Matrix marketing department and working at the behest of it. Doesn't mean he's knowingly doing it. It's just the sequence of events that have occurred that have put him in this position in this specific lifetime to do as such.
My dear child of God, Helmut. It's not easy to put this into words, but she somehow perceived me as a spiritual being rather than as a physical one. Therefore, she indeed treated me like a child of God. But from the very beginning, I assume she must have had some psychic abilities. She was a fantastic woman.
Prior to your near-death experience?
Yes, right when she had met me at the hospital. Even then, she welcomed, called, and treated me like a child of God. Treated being the operative word. She was responsible for my getting a single room for myself. She also made sure that I received a bedside lamp because I said I was afraid of the dark at night, which was a lie. But that's how I was able to read the book at night. I had loved to read as a child already. And it was the same Aunt Anna who gave me this particular book.
The Tibetan Book of the Dead?
Yes.
What insights did you get from this book?
So remember, he's here and getting the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I mean, I think, granted, yeah, it's part of the Matrix programming, but I think it's pretty awesome. I mean, it can, if from a young age, if you're given something like that and going through a traumatic event, granted, the Matrix is kind of setting him up in a way, but at the same time, it opens up the door for someone to flourish and see the illusions for what they are and protect themselves, because the Tibetan Book of the Dead talks about a lot of that stuff. But at the same time, it's a dead end. Just like everything else in the Matrix, it's a dead end. If it's popular and well known, it's a dead end because it sets it up that way on purpose. This system knows damn well that there are going to be individuals like you and I that do not, under any circumstances, want to come back here. And so what does it do? It adjusts accordingly and makes sure to spread out its word so that you and I and everyone else fall into the matrix information tunnel. And as long as you're kind of resting in that area and not thinking outside the box, not thinking about true liberation, not thinking about true sovereignty, that's all it cares about. That's all it cares about. It just wants to make sure that this most recent lifetime, this most recent life script that you're involved with, that you will be subservient. And if it has to throw a bone here and there of truth, so be it. But as long as you're falling for it, that's all it cares about. It's all about being programmed here, and those programs being pushed and elevated to the max when you cross over. So that there are clear systems in play, like we were talking about earlier. The continuity of familiarity. Can't say that enough. There's a reason why things look familiar when we leave here. There are reasons why there are soul groups and karma and sinning and judgment and all this other stuff. There are a reason why all these types of programs are running while we're here, because they're elevated when we cross over, and all the Matrix wants to do is make sure that regardless of whether you're having a near-death experience or you're actually dying, that it has done its job and won you over methodically so that you don't take the path of sovereignty, so you don't take the path of liberation, so you don't question anything and just assume that everything is as advertised and, hey, you're going to be okay. But just remember, you still got to, you got to work on this, you got to work on that, all this other stuff. This thing sets it up in such a way. Apologies.
You were still a child back then.
Well, she was very clear about me hiding the book and reading it secretly, because it is not beneficial for everyone. The Tibetan Book of the Dead basically describes the dying process. I read it, and it was quite fascinating. Before that, she had given me an important hint by saying, "Helmut, if ghosts arise, remember the following. Evil spirits are only unhappy human beings. If you read the book and see any spirits, it will always be you. You will always just encounter yourself, and you don't need to be afraid of yourself."
Okay, so I think it's interesting to hear it from that perspective, right? Because everything is customized to the individual, like we talk about. And it's proven, through the data, through the top leading researchers, not me. I'm not, someone who's dedicated their entire lives to this type of topic, but I've looked at a lot. But throwing that aside, like all the top researchers in the NDE field will say over and over and over again that everything is customized. Well, it's customized for a reason, to continue on the deception highway.
Show your face to your faith, and you'll always be glad and happy. I understood this immediately and read the book accordingly, without telling anyone about it. That was very helpful when I came up inside this tornado and then fell into this dark substance at the top. I encountered all those faces, and I always knew, that's me. That helped me a lot.
I think, again, because of the customization of everything, that some of that is true, But what the system is trying to accomplish is to get us to go along with it. And what was he given just prior to this experience? The Tibetan Book of the Frickin' Dead. And in the beginning of the experience, he talks about how, like, oh, well, I kind of expected to see this. And did as such, and bypassed all of it because this is something I was going to see. It's a matrix program, and this is why the Tibetan Book of the Dead, no matter how much truth is in there, it's a dead end. No pun intended. It really is. For as many truths that are in it, it talks about the layers, there's so much in that. And I do highly recommend the book. I do. But at the same time, it's a dead end. It really is. Just like many other things in the Matrix. It's popular for a reason. The Tibetan Book of the Dead is known by almost everyone on Earth, or many on Earth, for a reason. Because it's a mainstream spiritual talking point that's out there. And designed to get us to buy into the illusion further. To make you think that you have to traverse the Bardo realms and do this and that. Eventually, I'm being sarcastic here, but eventually, you go through the Bardo realms and, you reach the door and all of a sudden, you're free. Now, that's a very, very simplified version, a sarcastic version. Don't take it for heart, but you get what I'm saying. It's like there are these multiple layers set up to distract us. But what are you doing the entire time you're involved in the Bardo realms? You're interacting with the freaking predestined Matrix plan. It's just there, ready and waiting for you because of something that you consume that is mainstream and popular so that you don't discover yourself. I mean, I really, really do highly recommend going and buying the book or listening to the audiobook, whatever you got to do, because there's a lot of truth in it. But what it really shows at the end of the day is that it's all part of the same system. It's all the same. Nothing is different. Throw out the Tibetan Book of the Dead, insert the Bible, insert the Quran. I mean, on and on and on. It will customize itself to you to make sure that you go along with it because of your belief system instilled here. And well, what happens? You're born into a family. You're born into a certain belief system. You may vary from that belief system. Heck, you may disavow the belief system completely. But what's going to happen is the Matrix is going to have another belief system to take place of that previous belief system so that you buy into what it's selling. And that's all it cares about. I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but it can't be said enough. This is how this system thrives. By getting us to believe in its BS.
All those faces, and I always knew, that's me. That helped me a lot. It was fantastic. There are horror movies where one sees such things, and many people are afraid of them. That was another insight I got. The human being is afraid of recognizing itself, of knowing itself. There are so many old aphorisms saying, know thyself. But how can one do that? It's not possible for the mind to grasp it. It's only possible in an altered state like that, at least in my current opinion.
What happened as soon as you woke up from the coma?
It was terrible. Suddenly I was inside the body again, and I noticed how uncomfortable it actually was.
It was terrible. I suddenly realized how uncomfortable it really was. I mean, come on. That's a truth bomb right there, right? I mean, how many NDEers, pre-birth memories, and life between lives accounts do we hear over and over and over and over and over and over again where they say, I didn't want to come here. I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to do that. But they're already too far into the illusion. But they openly admit, and again, like if I had tons of money and was able to like dispatch scientific analysis and all sorts of different things, this would be one of them, because we could get some serious data out of this. Because it's out there. It exists. I mean, it's many cases where they talk about how they don't want to come back or they don't want to come here at all. Over and over and over again. Why is that? Because something within the nestled subconscious knows the BS. It knows this place is parasitic. But it's still too far along in the illusion and buying into the BS and in the matrix, and who knows what's going on with the memory wipe in those scenarios. The point is they are too far along to realize the scam that's being portrayed on them. The deception. Really, really important stuff here.
What happened as soon as you woke up from the coma?
It was terrible. Suddenly I was inside the body again, and I noticed how uncomfortable it actually was. All I wanted was rest, so I said to Aunt Anna, I want to sleep. I don't know how long I had slept. She must have passed the message on. But I rested for a couple of days and was therefore able to stay in this floating state. During this time, I had some more realizations, and I felt no pain, by the way. Quite interesting. The body was there, I felt it, but it was not burdensome, because it almost felt like a subtle body. One more interesting fact about Aunt Anna. 40 years later, she brought me a book at her birthday party. In this book, there was a note, which was written by her. Apparently, it states what I mumbled during my coma waking phase. I don't remember any of it, but she had written it down. Then she said to me, "You basically portrayed the Hermetic principles." As a 12-year-old child, I didn't know who Hermes was. I really had no idea.
So this is incredible, right? I mean, we have Hermes and the 12 Hermetic principles. We have the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I mean, this is like, it's just like, wow. And we're talking about a childhood near-death experience. I mean, this, you know, whoever he met, whoever this woman is, she really, really dropped some serious knowledge on him at a young age. But because it was such a profound experience, and that's the issue with a lot of this stuff, is like the experience is so profound, the connections are so profound that it distorts the vision of what's really going on here. And in turn, they can, or more than likely will become, a Matrix marketing department agent. Not saying he or anyone else does it on purpose, but because of the power that comes from these experiences, it makes it very, very easy. And what does it do? It continually spreads the word of the Matrix and keeps, you know, all the Matrix is concerned about is like, hey, are you going to watch this video, or am I going to watch this video? Am I going to have certain belief systems that are already ingrained in me and have them further confirmed in a spiritual sense? Talk about a win-win situation across the board. And this is what we're dealing with. It's very, very sophisticated operation. And it reveals itself over and over and over again, but it's just hoping you don't figure it out. It's hoping you and I don't figure it out and that everything is advertised, because all it cares about is that one last lifetime. And as long as it gets you to believe in it, memory wipes you, inserts you back into the system, well, it's one. It's one. You know, throw sovereignty and liberation out the window, right? Screw that.
But when I received this note, I was totally amazed by what is actually possible. It has been proven once again that we are spiritual beings and the body is materialized energy. Then I understood that the body is the result of the mind. Why am I thin? Because I want to be thin. And if anyone wants to be chubby, then that may be so. It's all a matter of mind.
Were you able to talk about your experiences later on as a child or teenager? Did you even want to?
That's an interesting question. I was not able to. Back then, during the post-war era, people had other things on their minds. Men were looking for work and women had to feed their children. If I had opened up about my experience, they'd probably have taken me who knows where. That was impossible. Moreover, such knowledge about near-death experience didn't exist back then. Only the pastor at the church talked about life and death, because death was a taboo topic. Who wants to talk about death anyway after war? People returned with amputated legs and arms. Who would want to talk about death then? It was time to live again. That was at least my perception as a child. What I did, though, was write poems. Due to that, I was seen as a weirdo and became an outsider, and I lived in that role for many years. But I was able to understand that because I had already seen it from above, which reassured me. Over and over again, I had this prayer in my mind: Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. It has always supported and saved me. That means I was always able to shift from those earthly burdens into a higher state of consciousness. It's not their fault because they don't know any better, and therefore they cannot be punished. Very interesting as well. They cannot be punished for something they don't know they are doing.
When it comes to near-death experiences, aka NDEs, you like to use the term NLE, which stands for near-life experience.
Yes, if one listens very closely to what I've said, one will notice that I was in an altered state of consciousness. Life was all there was, not death. Therefore, I cannot say I was near death, but rather near life. Never have I ever felt and lived more intensely than back then. Other people may call it a near-death experience, but for me it doesn't sound as correct as it should.
You returned from your experience with the need to pass on the knowledge that there is more than the materialistic world, but you were not able to do so post-war. Was there a time later on where you were able to meet this need, so to speak?
Meeting a need? I rather perceived it as an assignment. I would like to mention that the things that happened to me simply happened.
So I rather perceived it as an assignment. As an assignment. Well, well, well. Matrix marketing department coming through in full force.
Was there a time later on where you were able to meet this need, so to speak?
Meeting a need? I rather perceived it as an assignment. I would like to mention that the things that happened to me simply happened without my having a part in them. That was another feeling I had. In the beginning, it all ran like clockwork, with a few exceptions here and there. Each time when I was too body-oriented, I received a slap from life. My mother once told me, "Helmut, you are smart." If the boys want to fight again, then remember that the wiser head gives in, the stupid one will fall. Out of vanity, I said, okay, I will give in. Today, I have to admit that I felt quite resolute in doing so. So I began constantly to give in, to mediate, and I became kind of a peacemaker. But when I was 16 years old, I stopped doing that, because I had noticed that if the smarter one always gives in, the stupid ones will rule the world. I had this realization at the age of 16. That has something to do with the fact that I had met my wife at that age, who was 14 at the time. I saw her and immediately said, I will marry her. I'm with this woman to this very day, and we've been married for 52 years. From the mind's point of view, that isn't possible either. There must be some higher power, a knowledge or some sort of consciousness that makes this possible, because a lot can happen in 52 years. One could ask my wife if there were times when she wanted to send me packing at some point. There certainly were.
Maybe you've already asked her about this yourself.
She didn't want to send me packing, but rather send me to a rose garden. That makes me realize again that I am a guided being. I have discovered talents and abilities within me that others maybe had as well, but they lacked the courage to use them. I was never afraid of failing. I had doubts, like everyone does, but no fear. If one looks at all the things I have started and accomplished, then one comes to the conclusion that the only possible way is the one without fear.
According to your biography, a stroke you experienced in 2019, followed by a rehabilitation period, led you to the decision to go public with your experiences and insights.
There was an interim phase when I went to Germany. I was quite different from the others. I was the nice guy from Austria who was eloquent and in need of learning. The clinical death was
in need of learning. I mean, everything kind of points towards the life script, right? Where he is kind of like on a destiny to fulfill certain agendas that the Matrix wants done. I mean, it's openly admitted, at least in my opinion, multiple times in this interview.
There was an interim phase when I went to Germany. I was quite different from the others. I was the nice guy from Austria who was eloquent and in need of learning. The clinical death was always on my mind, though. I was guided once again to study in order to become a natural health professional, which was a challenging study because, for example, all the terms were taught in Latin, and I had to learn a lot. I hoped to find an answer regarding the clinical death there, but that didn't happen. It was life itself, as well as certain difficult books, which have eventually taught me to understand those answers.
The year 1989 played an important role in your biography. You had already lived in Germany for years at that point, but then learned that your youngest brother had developed leukemia. That was yet again an encounter with death, which was important.
Here comes the trauma train.
Yes, my brother was dying, and I was the only one who could be the bone marrow donor. So I donated 2 liters of bone marrow. That was a crazy time in and of itself, because I actually lived with him in quarantine in the hospital in Innsbruck over the course of a few months.
I mean, look, you know, it's like you hear something like this, and that's very noble. It's nice. It's kind. But like the reason for existing is difficult to stomach. And what was the purpose, right? I mean, look, it's his brother. I'm not at all crapping on him or his brother or what he did for him. I think it's awesome. He was there for him when he needed it. But at the same time, it's like you got to ask yourself, This is just more trauma programming, right? To get someone to agree, to think that they need to do this or that, to clear up their karma, their sinning, their judgment, whatever the case may be, or advance in their quote unquote spiritual development. We hear these types of things all the time. Well, I don't know. I think the experience speaks for itself.
He had three
And he's just making the best of it. That's all.
Quarantäne.
He had 3 children and he knew that he was dying. So he wanted to use the time he had left in order to sort things. His name was Joe. He was a charming guy, even though the name sounds kind of tough. I said to him, "Don't you worry, Joe. We will clear everything up." He wanted to know more about death, and I explained that there is no such thing as death. But he kept asking further. So now I was suddenly able to communicate everything that I had experienced, which was a huge relief, because there was finally someone who was able to make use of that knowledge. I think it is not until someone feels very bad when one is finally ready to change, including one's belief systems and thoughts in general. That was fortunate for me, because I was allowed to show him the way to light. I held seminars.
I was able to show him the ways of light. Able to show him impacting others within the matrix, knowingly or unknowingly.
I held seminars in Germany and Austria that were called Seize the Moment, for they are the smallest components of your successful or unsuccessful life. I settled down in Austria again, bought and improved a house, then sold it again because my wife didn't like it that much. We then moved to Steinz and bought another house, which is the 3rd one so far. That is absolutely amazing to me. That cannot be done, as it were, casually. There must be some guidance. I always come back to this. I have always found people who have supported and helped me. I cannot invent them. They were simply there at one point, which is a gift to me. I also understood in retrospect that my stroke in 2019 was once again a desired outcome. I wanted to get off the hamster wheel with all the knowledge I had. I then said to my wife that I didn't want any visitors during my rehab. So I was alone for 4 weeks in Judendorfstrasse Engel, where I ploughed on and reconsidered my whole life. At one point, I understood that I had to open up. People had the right to know what I had experienced, because knowledge belongs to all human beings, not just to me. I'm not privileged. I am a part of a whole. This certainty led to the decision to get started and to open up. Also, I knew that at my age, I'm not presenting a target to anybody. One cannot insult or hurt me, and neither can I be crucified anymore. Crucifying needs to be understood correctly. Everyone is being crucified a couple of times a day. Everyone is being wronged. But being able to deal with that injustice helps. One has to remember the phrase, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Then I can no longer hold a grudge against anybody.
Forgive them, they know not what they do. So again, we're circling right back around to what we've been talking about quite a bit on the stream tonight, is the judgment, the sinning, the karma, and casting it down onto others within the matrix, thinking that it's a good thing. And again, it's to no fault of his own. He's going along for the ride, and he's been in this spiritual vortex from a very, very young age and had help along the way in full force.
Justice helps. One has to remember the phrase, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Then I can no longer hold a grudge against anybody. I can put people in their place, but I don't have to immediately shoot them.
The Arnold Schwarzenegger Museum in Graz was opened in 2011, and you're one of the co-founders. What kind of a connection do you have with the world-famous Styrian?
I met Arnold Schwarzenegger personally at a young age. I was a player at Sturm back then and trained at the Liebenauer Stadium. Arnold Schwarzenegger did bodybuilding in the catacombs, and I had a trainee colleague who trained with Arnold. I visited him once and noticed they were working with very rusty iron.
Put the cookie down.
So I said to my trainee colleague, look, I'm a technician draftsman. I'll do some drawings and I'll get some new weights made. That will look much better. So I did that, and he took them with him. Arnold was very happy with that, and then I met him. But there was just one particular reason for the Arnold Schwarzenegger Museum. Something on an energetic level has connected me to Arnold Schwarzenegger. His ambition, his uniqueness, and the fact that he wanted to achieve something and then did so. He believed in himself. That was the reason why I strived towards portraying this personality, Arnold Schwarzenegger, in the right way. As a human being who had a goal, pursued this goal, and hung on to it, which is crucial. That is what I wanted to leave to posterity.
That is what you've tried to express in your pictures too.
Yes, we didn't have enough for the museum, and Arnold was far away already. In the beginning, we renovated it, and I remembered that I had started painting an image in Germany, which I hadn't finished. It was Conan the Barbarian. That was the one I finished first. After looking at it, I thought, wait a minute, that isn't Arnold. It's just a small portion of him. He was a bodybuilder, an actor, and a governor. My goal was to cover all these three areas of him in order to show what this man had accomplished. He didn't become an actor because he was a muscle man, nor did he become a governor because he was an actor. He has put his mind and thoughts into all of it.
Your book.
See, like, I would kind of disagree with that. Well, in a big way. You know, look, Arnold is a system plant through and through. And he's given himself away many, many times. Now, does he know that? Who knows, right? But he's towed the line from a very, very young age, from when he became popular to today, and hasn't let up whatsoever. Just saying.
All of it.
Your book released in 2021, and its title raised this question: do the deceased smile over us? Do they smile?
Well, let me put it this way. Once we, as human beings, become aware that we are egocentrics, have thousands of masks, and are inauthentic to ourselves, it may happen that we begin to laugh about ourselves. Let me give you a beautiful example. My wife and I were planning to go to a masked ball, and we dressed as Puss in Boots. We mistook the dates, though. So we drove to the party, completely dressed up, and once we arrived, we realized that there was no masked ball. Next to the location was a pub. I went in there, having completely forgotten that I had makeup on. Obviously, I got asked what the heck had happened to me. I laughed so much about myself and became aware that we're constantly playing all kinds of roles. But one only gets the real role, the one I have experienced, if one is in absolute consciousness. That is fascinating to me. The smiles are not boastful ones. They are benevolent smiles with the knowing behind them. You will figure it out too. You will be given the time, but I must attend to you so that you reach this state of consciousness.
Were you to sum up your personal experiences and your philosophical reflections?
So you've got to reach these potentials, right? But within the confines of the Matrix. Going to rewind this part because it's an important one.
smiles. They are benevolent smiles with the knowing behind them. You will figure it out too. You will be given the time, but I must attend to you so that
You will be memory wiped and not remember a damn thing. And I just have to transfer this information to you so that you can preserve the deception through us. Again, no offense to the NDE, just saying. Open admissions here throughout this entire conversation. It's a really, really unique case.
you will be given the time, but I must attend to you so that you reach this state of consciousness.
Were you to sum up your personal experiences and your philosophical reflections about life, what happens during death?
Only one thing occurs during death. The soul leaves the body, but not abruptly. Given my very fast clinical death, it was rapid, but that is not usual, according to many observations of mine. I was allowed to assist 17 people during their dying process, and it really is a process when the soul leaves the body, just as it is a process when the body grows in the beginning. It takes time and does not happen abruptly. Obviously, the mind has to go through some travails until the point when it's completely free. I say the Last Judgment does exist, but the human being does that to himself.
You were always a very active person in many ways. What are you currently doing, and what are your plans for the future?
Currently, I have a huge desire to bring more awareness into this world, so that man becomes more conscious regarding his actions and deeds, that he will come into action in general, because everything that happens through action. So I have founded an academy with a partner of mine called the Conhel Academy, where we want to confront people with old knowledge, because the old was never bad in the first place. We want people to step into their power again, so they will think in a more conscious manner. You previously asked me what our purpose in this world is. The purpose is to become conscious. That's the whole point. That is the reason for what we are doing.
There's so much truth in that statement, right? But if you have firewalls and blockades up against you, even when you do awaken, when you come out of the fog of war, the fog of the perception deception, then, well, all you have left are matrix truths, quote unquote, false truths. So why not, again, stick up for yourself and see what happens, instead of banking on this system being as advertised, because it does a hell of a good job at getting us to believe in its BS day in and day out. NDE after NDE, regression after regression, pre-birth memory after pre-birth memory, after-death communication after death communication. It just goes on and on and on.
We want to pass on our knowledge to people. Humanity is doing well on its path towards the next step to a higher state of consciousness. One can spot that everywhere. Thank goodness.
I wish you every success.
Okay, so that wraps up that interview. I'll say that, and this is my opinion, as far as the whole thing goes with, consciousness is evolving, humanity's progressing, blah, 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 blah. Look, we live in the internet age, right? Where we have access to loads of information. The system made a choice that it said, okay, we're going to give humanity these certain access to these certain technologies where you and I can sit here today and have a conversation about whatever. In this case, the Matrix, Reincarnation, Soul Trap. But all these things that are out there, the system weighs in the background. Okay, so if, the long-term goal that we see is transhumanism, right? Biological and robotic attachments, all this type of stuff that is going to bring humanity to a different level. And the playing field is going to be very unfair. And what's going to happen eventually is that, especially those who are being born now or like in the last, 5-10 years, they're being born into technology in a major way. And what they seem to want is to extend the lifespan of humans. And if they do that, then what happens? So instead of you, croaking out at 70, 80, 90, if you buy into what they're selling and allow these attachments, the brain chips, and all this other stuff, then it's going to extend your life. But you're still going to be linked directly to the system in a way that, at least this is the time we live in, right? But their agendas are clear. Why do they want to extend life so much? Why? Why have they brought in this entire system down to its knees with inflation and all sorts of different things going on out there? The pain, the suffering. Why is it we are where we are today? A lot of you can say, yeah, it's greed and it's capitalism and all this stuff, and a lot of that's true. But the long-term goal they have proven over and over and over again is that they want to extend life. So if you are bringing in a worldwide population in despair who are hurting and having a lot of trouble just to get through day to day, pay medical bills, pay food bill, the electric bill, just like all this stuff we were talking about earlier. If you introduce systems where you can cure things like anxiety, depression, put on a robotic limb, whatever, anything, all these types of traps that they put out there. If you can get the bulk of humanity down to like the lowest of the low, and then introduce solutions that, they may not be perfect, but if you can at least introduce solutions within the system, then it's got you. It's like, who wants to deal with depression and anxiety or you lose a limb or something? You pick it. And this system is ready and waiting to take care of you and offer you options. But those options are part of the beast system. So I think we're going to wrap things up for tonight. It's getting really late. I'm pretty tired. So my voice was a little shot tonight. I apologize. But I want to thank Dan again for coming on. And you can find Dan at OverWatch channel here on YouTube, Overwatch Project over here on Odyssey, and OverWatchProject.com. Feel free to check him out. Dan does a lot of good work, and if you're kind of just stepping into the conversation now, I definitely recommend rewinding the stream to the beginning, bypassing the countdown clocks, obviously, and listen to what Dan had to say about love. Really, really good stuff. And so thank you, everybody. I appreciate you and look forward to seeing you again soon. We may see each other tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure. But take care of yourselves. Don't work too hard next week. And, the monthly members live stream, just as a reminder, is going to be on, for this month, will be Sunday, April 30th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're a stream level member and higher, April 30th, Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Take care of yourselves, and we'll see each other again soon. Thanks so much.